What's up everybody, it's Dave here with Comics Games Life, and today's video is on Batman Superman World's Finest, the Devil Nezha. Our story begins in the city of Metropolis, where the Daily Planet building has begun to be overrun by monstrous plants. The one responsible for this madness is none other than Poison Ivy, who is perched at the top of the Daily Planet building, disgusted by this urban environment that she's surrounded in, but at the same time enjoying the sun because it's actually sunnier here in Metropolis than it is back in Gotham. And then she hears someone approaching. As she turns, she expects to see none other than Superman, but is grossly disappointed when she sees Batman and Robin, because apparently they have been tailing her since she left Gotham, tracking all of her movements, trying to figure out why she came to Metropolis in the first place. And while they're tying her up, Superman is nearby. He's doing some street level rescues, and as soon as he's done with that, he makes his way up to the top of the building where all the action is happening. But before they come to the conclusion as to why all this is happening in the first place, Metallo makes his appearance. This Kryptonite powered metal maniac has put Superman on edge for good reason, because he instantly feels the weakening effects of the exposure to Kryptonite. So that leaves Batman and Robin no choice but to jump into action. But even though Ivy is tied up, she is still a threat, and she commands some plant vines to tangle up Batman and Robin before they're able to help Superman. But Batman counteracts with some defoliant, which kills the vine that has him wrapped up, but Ivy goes into a rage and throws Robin over the side of the building. And then Batman leaps off to rescue him. Now this was a well-played move between Metallo and Poison Ivy, because that was probably the only way to get Batman off that rooftop, because he definitely wasn't going to sacrifice Robin to help Superman. But this did leave Supes in a very bad position, because he is weakened, alone, and at the mercy of two deadly villains, which are taking this opportunity to execute their plan. Because Metallo pulls out this syringe, and inside of this bad boy has a dozen pieces of red kryptonite. Now one single piece of red kryptonite can transform Superman's biology in an unpredictable and possibly fatal way. And in this red kryptonite cocktail are a dozen single pieces of red kryptonite, which will put Superman in 12 different phases of pain, torment, and most likely death. And without any mercy, Metallo reaches up and stabs Superman directly in the chest. And that scream is heard by both Batman and Robin as they're making their way back up to the top of the building. There is no more messing around, so Batman delivers a familiar bat boot to the face of Poison Ivy, and Robin stabs Metallo in the chest with his bow staff. Now that the bad guys are out of commission, Batman and Robin go to see what's going on with Superman, as he's screaming and writhing in pain. Now while they're trying to figure out exactly what's going on, off in the distance, we see a mysterious figure hiding in the shadows, and we can see by his words that this is only the beginning. While investigating the area, Robin comes across a syringe that Metallo used to stab Superman, and inside he sees the bits of red kryptonite. So putting two and two together, they figured out what's going on. And just then, Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen reach to the top of the Daily Planet. While Robin is breaking down the events that just took place, Superman is still going crazy. As we see here, his body is becoming transparent. Now this puts Superman in an incredible amount of pain. Seeing as how his body is absorbing much more solar radiation than usual, it's making his senses go crazy. So much so that he skyrockets up into the air. And then Batman starts dishing out commands. He tells Lois to go call the authorities so they can get rid of Metallo and Poison Ivy. And he tells Robin and Jimmy Olsen to follow Superman as best as they can, while he goes and finds help. Superman eventually crash lands into the city streets, and when he does, his body starts to take on another transformation, where now he's turning into a piece of metal. He's literally becoming the Man of Steel at this point. But fortunately, Batman's call for help has just arrived in the form of the Doom Patrol. We have Cliff Steele, Elastigirl, and Negative Man, and they're doing their best to subdue Superman. But at this point, Superman's sanity has started to fade, and now he's seeing things, because he's not seeing his fellow superheroes. Who he sees in front of him is General Zod. So now Supes starts to go on the attack, and he's destroying buildings and throwing cars around and beating up his friends, because all he sees are enemies. Now Batman does something that the others weren't able to do. He's able to get close enough to Superman to reason with him. However, Superman doesn't see Batman. Superman actually sees Lex Luthor, and as he grabs who he thinks is Lex Luthor by the throat, he lifts him up in the air. And Batman is pleading with Superman, saying, "What you're seeing is not really what's there. And to prove it, I know who you are. I know your name is Clark, and I will always have your back." Now that triggered a memory in Superman's head, because those same words were uttered long ago when Batman and Superman first started working together, and Superman had helped Batman rescued Robin from the clutches of the Penguin. So this does bring Superman back to his senses so he stops being berserk and destroying everything around him, but doesn't take away the physical pain that he's going through. So fortunately, Negative Man, he's able to use his powers to emulate the radiation of a red sun, and he gets close enough to Superman to where this actually puts him at ease and knocks him unconscious. Now Batman, Robin, and the rest of the Doom Patrol are able to get Superman to Calder Mansion, the home of Dr. Nick Calder, aka the Chief, the leader of the Doom Patrol, and they're hoping with his genius intellect that he can somehow figure out a way to get this red kryptonite out of Superman's body. And he has an idea about how he can help Superman, but it's going to take some exploratory surgery with some kryptonite-infused surgical tools. And now that he has cut his chest open, he can see that his heart isn't damaged, but his blood is toxifying at an alarming rate. And the doctor yells for Negative Man, saying that you need to shrink down and enter into the bloodstream of Superman and use your powers to transform the kryptonite particles into something harmless. But the problem is, Negative Man can only present himself in that form for 60 seconds. So he has 1 minute to go throughout the entirety of Superman's bloodstream to find these particles and to transform them into something that won't hurt Superman. As we look at the next couple of pages, and we can see these different panels of Batman. Now he's showing something that we don't normally see from him, and that's emotion. There is general concern for Superman's life on the face of Batman. And when Negative Man comes out of Superman's body, the open surgical wound of Superman starts to heal up, and then we see Superman start to groggily awaken, and you can just see the giant smile on Batman's face. And it even creeps out Elastigirl a little bit. So later on, Batman, Superman, Robin, and the Doom Patrol, they're still in the mansion, and Dr. Calder is bringing to their attention an artifact that recently came into his possession. And immediately Batman and Dr. Calder start talking over one another. They start finishing each other's sentences, trying to one-up each other, almost like they're having a battle of intellect. And Robin whispers over to Superman asking, why are they doing that? And Superman says, well, this is what happens when you put two guys who want to be the smartest guy in the same room together. As Batman and Dr. Calder are going back and forth about their knowledge of this Chinese artifact, which is like this sword, Dr. Calder gets the last word against Batman and said that his team actually figured out the truth behind the myth and legend of this artifact. And it goes like this. So this sword belonged to someone named Nezha, who happened to be the son of a powerful Chinese warlord who goes by the name Li Jing. And the story goes that the son, Nezha, died in battle. And so distraught by what happened, Li Jing has his son's body preserved as best as possible and places him in a tomb with that very same sword. And then for the next 10 years, Li Jing, he goes to every wise man, every magician that he can find, and threatens them to give him the power or the knowledge to be able to resurrect his son. And during this 10-year span, he spends his entire fortune trying to complete this quest, until finally he comes to the home of a magician who might actually be able to give him the power that he's been searching for. But the magician won't see him. So all Li Jing does is scrub the floor of this magician's home, hoping that the magician will give him some sort of favor. And eventually the magician does just that and gives Li Jing an elixir for eternal life. So he returns back to the tomb of his son and pours this elixir on him, and it does exactly what it's supposed to do, and his son comes back to life. And so a tear-stained faced Li Jing is telling his son all that happened in this past decade, saying that he's traveled the known world, that he's spent their fortune, and eventually he had become a servant in the house of this magician. And after hearing this, Nezha is disgusted that his father would give away their prestige, their status, and their power. And Nezha tells him, all I wanted was your respect, and you don't even have that left to give. And then he decapitates him with his sword. And so Nezha set out to retake and reconquer all that his father had given up. And he built an army twice the size that his father had built, and amassed a fortune 5 times what his father could have done. But his thirst for power and wealth became unquenchable, and soon he was known as the Devil Nezha. Now with strength, wealth, and magic at his side, he set out to conquer the known world. So seeing as how he's not around and conquering things now, obviously he was stopped somehow. So apparently the House of G, they assembled a group of magic warriors, and they got into this epic fight with Nezha. But no matter what they did, they couldn't destroy him, but they were able to imprison him. But Dr. Calder believes that he may have escaped, because he believes that this is the reason why Metallo and Poison Ivy attacked Superman the way that they did. He believes that they were controlled or influenced somehow by Nezha, because they weren't the only ones. Apparently, Dr. Calder has a whole surveillance system that keeps an eye on villains and heroes, and he sees similar things happening with the villains of The Flash and Wonder Woman. And this is the time where the team breaks up and goes their separate ways. So Superman had actually called Supergirl in for her help, and her and Robin team up to go meet with the leaders of the House of G. Now you can see that Supergirl and Robin are very reluctant to work together. There's something going on there behind the scenes. Now we don't get details in this issue about what happened, but spoiler alert, they had gone out on a date previously and ended horrible. And since then they've been a little at odds with one another. But the Doom Patrol, they go and set out to find the tomb of Nezha. And Batman and Superman, they're actually going to go rescue a young boy who's being terrorized by Felix Faust. And when Batman and Superman get to the scene, they find the young boy who happens to be Billy Batson, aka Shazam, and they can see why he actually doesn't call upon Shazam, because Faust has sealed Billy's mouth shut. Now Faust isn't exactly a top tier level villain, but they are noticing he has some extra powerful magical gadgets, so he is momentarily able to capture Batman and Superman. But Superman does something really cool. He actually whistles at such a low frequency that Faust can't hear him, but the frequency that he uses is the same frequency that makes the human body feel muscle cramps and nausea. And this makes Faust totally lose his concentration, which releases that magical force field belt that Superman and Batman are caught up in. And then Superman goes and grabs Faust. He's demanding the name of whoever's in charge, whoever is causing them to create all this mayhem and chaos. And Faust gives like this shaky response, but then the last word he says is misdirection. And then literally all hell breaks loose, because surround Billy and Superman and Batman are flames and demons and burning bodies. And Faust is yelling, "I have a new master who imbue all who work with him great magical power." And all he asks for in return is the death of his enemies. Now at first Batman is saying that this is just magic, this isn't real, but then the pain starts to come in and all these demonic figures that have him all wrapped up in their tentacles and tails, and Batman screaming at Superman to do something because all Superman is doing is standing still with his eyes closed. And then Superman lifts up his hand and gives Batman the international sign to shut up and let me do my thing. And in Superman's other hand appears a batarang, and then he launches it straight into the shoulder of Felix Faust. So what Superman was doing was actually pretty cool, because he was tapping into his inner Daredevil and was trying to listen for another heartbeat besides Billy, Batman, and himself. And once he detected that fourth heartbeat, he launched the batarang in that direction and took out Felix, which in turn broke the spell. As Superman begins to question Felix, he just completely passes out. It's almost as if someone literally turned him off. And with Billy in a similar state of unconsciousness, Batman and Superman decide that it's time to get Billy to a safe place and to come up with a strategy to take down whoever's behind all this. But just before they leave, Billy's eyes open wide and he doesn't have any pupils. All you see is white. And this demonic voice starts speaking through him and is telling Batman and Superman that no amount of strategy will stop what he has planned, and that them and all the other heroes like them are going to be killed by his soldiers. So says the Devil Nezha. So Batman and Superman already knew that other heroes were in danger, but now they know for sure. So they're going to go out and try to warn as many people as they can. While they're out doing that, let's go ahead and see what the Doom Patrol is up to. And it seems like they're in the snowy mountains of Switzerland, and they come across the castle of General Immortus, a familiar enemy that they've faced many times. And this time they're hoping that he's going to have some answers for them, as he is also familiar with ancient artifacts, since he himself is several hundred years old. Now once they bust through the doors and they defeat his henchmen, they find him in a small room tending to plants. And of course the Doom Patrol comes off intimidating because they need some answers. But General Immortus is shriveling from fear. He has no idea who they are. And that's when Elastigirl realizes that he has dementia, so he isn't a threat to them, but he may not have the answers that they're looking for. And so Negative Man, he tries to jog his memory by showing him the symbol of Nezha. And this freaks him out big time, and he's asking the Doom Patrol to save him from Nezha. And Elastigirl is calming him down, telling him that it's not him. Nezha is somewhere else. Would you know where he is? And the general just sputters, yes, he's in a tomb off the island of Corto Maltese. And she asks him if he can be more specific, and his response is less than helpful. So they leave the general to his own devices and head out to meet up with the other heroes. Okay, so we have the Doom Patrol on their way back from Switzerland, and Batman and Superman going out to help the other heroes who are in need. But let's take a look at Supergirl and Robin. And their adventure picks up just after leaving Calder Mansion. And like I said before, right now they are not the best of friends. It all stems back from a really bad date they had not too long ago. And that date is actually covered in issue number 12 of Batman Superman World's Finest. I'm not going to go into that right now, but what happened on that date explains the animosity towards one another. And in these panels, we see that they're blaming each other and pointing the finger, saying to the other that they're responsible for the date being ruined. But when the bickering finally comes to an end, Supergirl goes ahead and speeds up and breaks the time barrier. And before we're lost as far as like exactly how she's doing this, because even Robin's questioning it, he's wondering how she's even going to pick the right point in time where we're going to meet these magical warriors. She gives Robin and us a brief explanation how this is going to go down. So she uses her X-ray vision to see the tachyon trail left by the sword, and by that she can literally follow the history of the sword, and she takes it all the way back to just after Nezha has been imprisoned. And just before they land, Robin is already waving the white flag saying, hey, we come in peace. And the reason why they can understand is because he actually has an earpiece that helps him to hear and translate what they're saying, as well as translate what he's saying to them. And Supergirl doesn't actually need one, because being Supergirl, she already knows the language. But even though they come up to the warriors with this I come in peace greeting, the warriors' response is to attack, because they think that this colorful duo that just showed up out of nowhere are two of Nezha's soldiers. And Robin responds in protest saying, no, we're on your side. But one of the warriors fires back with the claim that they're liars, because if they aren't soldiers of Nezha, why are they carrying his sword? And in that moment, Robin is realizing that that is a very good point, and he knows that they're going to be in a world of trouble if they can't convince them that they're also the good guys. Now, the legendary warriors of G are a formidable lot. Each one has the power of an element: water, fire, air, and earth. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if the inspiration of these characters are from Avatar: The Last Airbenders, Katara, Zuko, Aang, and the Boulder. The creators of Avatar: The Last Airbender weren't the first to come up with characters. They use the elements for the basis of their powers, but they're certainly some of the most popular and most successful. Now, even if these four are literally a carbon copy of characters from that series, it doesn't necessarily mean that these are bad characters, more so along the lines of just lazy characters. Now, like I said, that's not really a bad thing. In the future, I might actually do a whole video based around quote-unquote lazy characters, or carbon copies of popular characters that are able to stand on their own 2 feet. But not to say that there are lazy characters that are bad characters, because there's plenty of those out there as well. And I was kind of hoping to see more of these guys. As far as I know, this is the only place where I've seen them. But anyway, they do get into it with Supergirl and Robin. Eventually, Robin does convince them to pump the brakes a bit and listen to what he has to say. And once they do, they start to tell the story of how they were to defeat Nezha. And for 5 days and 5 nights, they fought against the Devil Nezha, and all the while pushing him towards this magical tomb that was created by this village using over 3 generations of magic. And once they were finally able to get him through the doors, there was something else that needed to be done for them to successfully entrap Nezha in this prison. And I'm gonna come to that a little bit later in the story. But once Supergirl and Robin get this information, they time travel back to the future, but along the way, they run into some heavy turbulence, and Supergirl is unable to hold her grip onto Robin's shoulders, and Robin ends up falling into the void. Now we're gonna look at Superman and Batman, because they're making their way to go see what's going on with the Flash and Wonder Woman. And once they get to that location, they see the Flash, but they can't see Wonder Woman, so they decide to split up. But by the time they reach the heroes in need, their battles have already been lost, because Flash was fighting Mirror Master, and Wonder Woman was fighting Dr. Alchemy. But with the power that Nezha has given them, these unexpected heroes were falling into traps, and the Flash becomes lost in one of Mirror Master's mirrors, and Wonder Woman is turned into clay. Now, Batman and Superman are having a tough time ringing these guys in, as Mirror Master sends one of his mirrors to consume Superman, and Batman is dodging Dr. Alchemy's transformative energy blasts. So Superman gets the idea to pit these two villains against one another, or at least their powers anyway, and Superman brings that devil-powered mirror in the crosshairs of one of Dr. Alchemy's blasts, and it gets destroyed. And then Supes quickly knocks out Dr. Alchemy, and then Batman gains possession of his Philosopher's Stone. And before they're able to figure out a way to bring Wonder Woman and the Flash back, Green Lantern appears, and they're stoked because the more help, the better. And then Green Lantern tells them, guys, I just got word, Nezha is no longer possessing villains for his conquest. And Batman responds with, wait, where did you hear that from? And then through the devilish smile of a possessed Green Lantern, he says, where do you think? And then instantly imprisons Superman and Batman in a cage. And Batman wastes no time, and he contacts Alfred saying, Nezha is going after heroes now. Tell me, had the Justice League servers been compromised? And we see Alfred observing all the monitors in the Batcave, and he's telling Batman, nope, everything looks fine. But everything is definitely not fine, because Alfred is not alone, and we see that Alfred has become another one of Nezha's puppets. So Bats and Supes, they're getting no help from no one. And not content with just keeping them trapped in a cage, Green Lantern goes on the attack, and he's hurting Superman pretty badly. And this has Batman perplexed, because how in the world is he able to do this? How is Superman so vulnerable to Green Lantern's powers? But then he realizes that Green Lantern's power has been enhanced or augmented with magic. And magic is something that Kryptonians have a difficult time contending with. But for the first time in this story, Nezha actually makes his appearance to Superman and Batman. And it's kind of strange because his desire is to eliminate superheroes and take over the world. And instead of taking the opportunity to stealth kill Batman, he just comes up behind him and grabs him by the throat. But I guess this is one way to tell the audience exactly how Nezha got out of his tomb, because that's what happens. He goes and tells Batman that while inside for over 3,000 years, there was no spell that was able to release him. So he had to create one. So symbol by symbol, he finally came up with one and then escaped to fulfill his original plan of taking over the world. So this powerful magical demon has Batman in his grasp, and instead of killing him, he literally just throws him away. I mean, like, how crazy is that? Like, I know they have to write in an escape plan for these heroes, especially for Batman, seeing as how he's not super powered. It's not like he can just fly away or match Nezha's strength. But I feel that when it comes to a villain fighting Batman, they can't just be throwing in these get out of jail free cards when all they have to do is literally just do a simple action and then Batman would be gone forever. I feel that that's happened so much and so often, it's expected that when I do see these moments, I really do look for a creative and clever way for Batman to actually get away. Whether it's of his own design or the villain has good reason to not just take him out right then and there. I believe a common one is because they want to see him suffer, or they want to keep Batman alive so he can see their evil plans unfolding. You know, something to that effect. But to kind of just throw him away, I thought was kind of strange, seeing as how he wants to just kill them all. I mean, wouldn't Batman be like a great ally? I mean, he could have just possessed them instead. But anyway, if any of that would have happened, we wouldn't get what's going to happen next. next. Because just before Green Lantern is about to deliver the fatal blow to Superman, Batman comes to the rescue with the Philosopher's Stone and creates an elemental shield that blocks Green Lantern's attack. But he doesn't just stop there. He continues to use the ring's power to blast away at this shield, which will soon enough kill Superman and Batman. And Batman and Superman are trying to figure out what to do next. How are they going to get out of this predicament? And then a light bulb goes off in Batman's head because he realizes the ring is drawn to willpower. So he tells Superman, with our powers combined, together we can become Captain Planet. No, I'm just kidding. That's an early 90s reference there. Mention something in the comments if you get that. But anyway, he tells him that both of our willpowers together might be enough to get control of the ring. So they're focusing in on it. And Batman's using his black belt in motivational speech. And he's telling Superman that we just have to focus on the ring. And then it happens. The ring chooses them. And when I mean them, I mean them. Because Batman and Superman come together into one physical body by the ring's powers. They are literally Super Batman right now. And I think this costume design looks awesome. The color patterns of the red, yellow, black, and blue really match well together. I think that the choice to not give him a cape, even though both Batman and Superman have a cape, makes the character look more powerful, more sleek, more efficient. Although I am kind of curious what's in the utility belt, if it's still the same things that Batman would normally have, or some sort of enhanced, upgraded version of those original gadgets. The symbol that they have that represents both Batman and Superman looks really, really cool, and to be honest, looks almost like a dragon, which I'm really getting like a space ninja kind of vibe. Not only that, but Super Batman was actually an exclusive Funko Pop at this year's San Diego Comic-Con, and I do actually like to collect Funko Pops. I'm not a super serious collector that will chase down rares and things like that. I pretty much like getting Funkos from specific games and movies and comics that I like, and if I can, I definitely want to pick this one up in the future. But anyways, back to the story. So Super Batman is facing off Nezha, Firestorm, Red Tornado, Martian Manhunter, Kid Flash, and Black Canary. Now with the power and strength of Superman, plus the fighting ability and strategic mastery that Batman has, Super Batman makes short work of these possessed heroes, which is good because there's only a short amount of time that the ring is going to keep Batman and Superman fused together. And as we can see, we have a power meter countdown, and it's already in the single digits. But Doom Patrol radios in just in time and lets them know that they found the tomb. So Super Batman stuns Nezha and flies him to that island in the Corto Maltese. But just before they get there, the ring did all it could to fuse them together, and now they're two separate people again, which means Nezha now has the upper hand. And just before he breaks their neck, Supergirl flies back into the current time and sucker punches Nezha. Now Supergirl and Nezha end up fighting each other all the way until they crash land into the island where the tomb is. And Supergirl is barely conscious, but she gets to her feet, and luckily Nezha is currently unconscious. But they don't have a whole lot of time. They gotta get him in that tomb. And that's when Supergirl breaks the tragic news of how the G Warriors were able to keep Nezha in that tomb. And that's because one of them needed to stay inside with him to seal it. So originally there were 5 members of the G Warriors, and that 5th member had to stay inside, locked in there with Nezha, and guaranteed he was torn apart and tortured to death. Because in this tomb, Nezha still has his powers. He can't break out, but he still has his powers. Now there's some speculation as far as like what power that 5th member had, seeing as how we have earth, wind, fire, and water. My guess it might be something like either metal or possibly the concept of void. But those are just my thoughts. We don't get a clear idea as far as what that 5th person's power was. So this is the part where all the heroes are fighting to be that sacrificial lamb, and Superman just decides that it's going to be him. But then Batman stops him and says, hey, when you're in there, you're against magic, which means you're pretty much a human being to this guy. I should be the one to go because I'm a much better fighter than you are. And the Doom Patrol pops up and says, you know what? Hey, we're expendable. It's kind of in our name. I think one of us should go. And then Supergirl just stops everybody and screams, no, I'm the one that needs to go. I deserve it. And that's when everyone's looking around and Batman asks, where's Robin? And in her defeated state, all she could mumble was, I don't know. I couldn't. And then bam, Nezha's got his second win and he's on the offense. And he's just done what he should have done from the beginning. He has possessed Superman. And as the Man of Steel is on the attack, the rest of the heroes spread out. Supergirl steps up and goes toe-to-toe with her Kryptonian cousin, while Batman and the Doom Patrol try to take on Nezha. And as Batman is giving orders, all of a sudden, Elastigirl comes out of nowhere and grabs Batman in her giantess form. And that's when we realize that Elastigirl has been possessed. But not only that, Negative Man is being possessed as well. So with Batman, Robot Man, and Supergirl are the only ones in their right mind, Robot Man is the only one who's not actually fighting somebody, so he decides to go after Nezha all by himself. And he's all out of options. He's going to do the only thing he knows how to do and swing for the fences. And would you look at that, he lands the hit. And Robot Man is shocked. He can't believe he did what he just did. And that shakes off the possessions that all the other heroes were having being done to them. And that's when Supergirl remembers what one of the Warriors of G had said, that Nezha has adapted and is able to defend every element, energy, science known. But that's only of his time. He's not of this current time. So Robot Man is made up of a different type of energy, different type of elements than he's used to. So once they put 2 and 2 together, Supergirl tells Robotman to just keep nailing on him. And then Batman joins in and starts electrocuting him with a taser. And Supergirl looks around and is about to tell Superman that if they keep putting on the pressure, we can deliver the final blow to get him in the tomb. And that's when she realizes she's talking to nobody because Superman ain't around. He just disappeared. Is he still possessed? Did he chicken out? Because although Batman and Robotman were having success with what they were doing, even though Nezha isn't aware of these technologies, he immediately adapts to them. So that was a super short window that they had one-upped him. Now they're back to where they started. And just before Nezha settles things for good, Superman reappears because in that split moment where he disappeared, he flew to his Fortress of Solitude and flew back. And this time armed with the Phantom Zone projector. And he pulls the trigger and Nezha is gone. And in this brief moment of peace, Supergirl tells Batman what happened to Robin and how she was unable to save him when they were flying through time. And the ever-optimistic Superman makes a declaration that we'll figure it out. We always do. And just then, Nezha breaks through the Phantom Zone and reaches back into this reality. There is nothing that can stop this guy. And so Supergirl, Batman, and Superman all see the seal that they need to seal the inside of the tomb. Except Superman's faster and he flies by and he grabs it up. And Double Leg takes down Nezha and flies him straight into the tomb. And Batman is in hysterics. He's screaming Superman. He's running towards the door. He's pounding on him. And then he starts snapping at Supergirl and she starts firing back at him. And then Robotman comes in and breaks it up and says that we can mourn for Superman later. Right now, the world needs to know what he just did for them. So as the heroes walk away from the tomb, Batman stays behind and he starts looking around. He's, saying things like, where is it? Where did it go? And this catches the rest of their attention. They're asking, Batman, what are you looking for? And he turns to them and he asks, have you seen the Phantom Zone projector? And that's when it clicks. So they all look back at the original crack that Nezha had broke through. A sliver of it is still there. So they all go racing to it. And with Negative Man being the Swiss Army knife of things physical and metaphysical, he starts pulling the thing open because they realize Superman had the projector on him when he flew Nezha into the tomb, and before Nezha could do anything to Superman, he turned the projector on himself, shot himself into the Phantom Zone, and just before he was completely gone, uses his heat vision to destroy the gun, ultimately locking Nezha inside. So as our heroes are reaching into the Phantom Zone and they're pulling out Superman, Batman is adding some extra degrees on his black belt of motivational speaking, and he's telling them to give it all they got because they only have 60 seconds. Remember, Negative Man is only in this form for 60 seconds at a time, but lo and behold, Supes breaks all the way through just before it closes. So I really like that. I thought that was a really cool idea. As I was reading this, I didn't expect that to happen. I knew Superman was going to get out. I just didn't know exactly how they were going to do it. But that short sequence of events really had me engaged. And I was pleasantly surprised by that because it was only a couple of pages. But those few pages, I got a lot of entertainment out of it. And as Batman is telling Superman that that was a huge gamble, Superman tells him that depending on Batman to notice something is not a gamble. That's a plan. So the last thing that they do is bury the tomb under rocks and rubble so no one finds it again. Now with Nezha put away for good and no one under his possession, there's only one thing left to do, and that's to find and get back Robin. Now that conclusion is not in this storyline. That takes place in a future volume of Batman Superman World's Finest. So that is the end of this story. Now, there's a lot I liked about this. I love the art, the colors, the story itself, the fact that the heroes couldn't just punch their way out of the situation. There was teamwork not just with fighting, but also investigating and coming up with clever ideas to beat the bad guy and save the world. Part of me as I was reading this, I was kind of wondering why they didn't recruit any other heroes. I know that the Flash, Wonder Woman, and Green Lantern were out of commission, but since Supergirl, when she flew back in time to get the information from the G-Warriors, I mean, she was strong enough. They could have just flew back with her, or at least a couple of them. I mean, it's possible they could have all gotten lost like Robin did, but I think that would have added some predictability to the situation because with the whole self-sacrificing of somebody to seal the tomb, one of these G-Warriors would definitely be a red shirt in that capacity, putting our more familiar and popular heroes out of harm's way. But instead, we got to see that awesome twist at the end with Superman blasting himself into the Phantom Zone and all of them coming together to rip him back out. So if you like this story and look forward to more, by all means, subscribe to this channel, like, share, and comment on the video. Maybe you're solely into comics and not so much games, or maybe you're into games and not so much comics. There are many bridges that bring these two divides together, especially in this day and age when we have video games, card games, board games, tabletop RPGs with stories and characters ripped from comics, and vice versa with comic books about your favorite video game, card, and tabletop gaming characters as well. So whatever hobbies pique your interest, always remember to get your books and accessories from your local comic and game shop. Support the places that help you support your passions. I love, thank, and appreciate all of you who are out there, and I'll see you next time.